Hey, this is Adrian Granados, and you're watching True School Sports.
It's personal between me and you, and I'm going to do you some serious harm, you big stiff idiot.
The Untouchable True School Sports Empire proudly presents something the boxing game's been missing. Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. Now, this is going to be a bit more of a special video. You know, it's not like, this isn't a video that's like, you could say is about a current, like breaking news thing or a topic that's currently happening in boxing. But this is more so like an opinion video, straight opinion video, perspective video. Maybe you could even say it's a bit of like a boxing history video a little bit as well. But, I get asked the question a lot from people from people on YouTube, people on Instagram, people that I talk to in the boxing community, whether it be fans, other boxing media channels, whatever. I get asked the question a lot about, certain trainers. Who do I think is a great trainer? Names gets passed along to me, and I always give my perspective to people on what I think about certain trainers and certain coaches in boxing. And there's so many of them. There's a lot of good ones, a few great ones, and a lot of average and not so good coaches. But this video is about one of the guys that I truly think is one of the best trainers in boxing. He's actually in rarefied air to the point where I would honestly say he's beyond just a trainer. He is a teacher. He is someone that really, really, really is an elite class boxing mind and aficionado. And that trainer is none other than Peter Fury himself. I wanted to give Peter Fury his flowers because I've never really spoken about Peter Fury, but like studying basically just his demeanor in interviews over the last few years, really doing my homework on the role he's played in both Tyson Fury and Savannah Marshall's career. I really do believe that Peter Fury is one of the best coaches in boxing, and I'm gonna kind of give you guys my perspective why, and you guys could tell me what you think. But Peter Fury, first and foremost, when you look at his temperament, and that's the main thing I always look for in a coach is like their temperament. How do they approach life? Because how they approach life is often how they will approach boxing. And Peter Fury is a guy that's pretty much a straight talk guy, no nonsense, very common sense sort of guy. He's not going to win any awards for being, a nuclear physicist, but he just has common sense and he sees the world in a very practical way. And the same you could say for his boxing. And that's why when you hear about him breaking down fights or talking about certain fighters and things like that, he's really truthfully one of the best boxing minds out there. And I would definitely say in the top three, no doubt about it, for best trainers in British boxing, no doubt about it. Let's start with his work with Tyson Fury, because I don't think a lot of people have properly taken the time to talk about Peter Fury and his time with Tyson Fury. Now, it is worth noting that Tyson Fury, in his book Behind the Mask, did reveal that him and Peter Fury are no longer on speaking terms. They don't get along together for whatever the case may be. He's moved on. He's doing this thing. Peter Fury's moving on. He's doing this thing. Hopefully, God willing, that those two could reconcile and be good if they haven't already, because you don't want to ever leave this earth with you having any hatred or bitterness or just, anything that's negative towards a family member, But anyway, let's talk about Peter Fury and what happened. How did him and Tyson Fury come to be? Well, we got to go back all the way back to the beginning of Tyson Fury's career. Tyson Fury, early in his career, actually was trained by Huey Fury Sr. for the first 17 pro fights of his career. It was kind of a mixed bag. It was like he was trained by Huey Fury Sr. and then he was trained by a trainer by the name of Chris Johnson, who was an American trainer. And pretty much, if you go back and you watch Tyson Fury back in those early days, like the Nevin Pajic fights, John McDermott. I mean, he was a far cry of the Tyson Fury we know and love today. He wasn't the guy that could float around the ring and box at that athletic 6'9" size. He wasn't this like ultra talented fighter. He was winning a lot of fights back in those days, not so much because of his skills, but more so because of his balls and his determination, because his posture was not up to par. He would fall over on punches all the time. He would get clipped a lot. Go look at the Nevin Pajic fight. Go look at the Steve Cunningham fights. Go look at a lot of the fights early in his career. Tyson Fury was very much a work in progress, and he wasn't the guy we know today. So after about, 17 fights, after the Nevin Pajic fight, Peter Fury pretty much started training Tyson Fury around the Martin Rogan fight, and pretty much, there's an article on Boxing News that I was reading that kind of like detailed all this, and I was reading about it. Pretty much, Peter Fury had been training a bunch of amateurs and people like that and going around the world, so he didn't really have time to train Tyson, but he wanted to work with them because, that's his family, of course. And he actually had recommended that Tyson Fury go train with the Ingles at the Brendan Ingle gym. And so pretty much he'd be training there, whatnot, and it just didn't work out. So eventually, Peter Fury just made the decision that he was going to take Tyson Fury with him to wherever he went. So he took Tyson Fury with him to France, Germany, wherever they went, And he took him with him. And it was through this time, this is where Tyson Fury's skills really began to develop. He pretty much told Tyson Fury what he was doing wrong as far as falling over on punches, with the jab, not, jabbing off of his front foot and running into shots, giving up his size so easily. And he started training Tyson Fury around the Martin Rogan fight. So for anybody who wants to do some homework, go watch Tyson Fury in the Nevin Pajic fight, the Nikolai Furta fights, the John McDermott, these kind of fights before he got with Peter Fury. And then start from after you watch a couple of those fights, go watch Tyson Fury against Martin Rogan, Kevin Johnson, Steve Cunningham, Chisora, Christian Hammer, and you'll see the growth. You'll see the growth that he had as a fighter. And by the time he got to the Klitschko fight, he had grown so much as a heavyweight that he really put it all together in the fight against Klitschko, because by the time he got to Klitschko, he had understood his balance, his range, how to box and move and fight off that 6'9" frame. So what Peter Fury did was he pretty much simplified a lot of things for Fury, and he got him to really fight within himself. And that's the mark of a good coach, because sometimes a great coach, because sometimes a fighter can have all the tools in the world physically or even as far as his skills, but sometimes they just don't know how to stay within themselves and fight the fight that works for them. And Peter Fury came along and he cleaned up the things that Tyson Fury was doing wrong at a high clip. He minimized the mistakes and then improved on the strengths. And Tyson Fury began to grow into the dominant heavyweight we know today. So that's like one example of like how I feel Peter Fury made Tyson Fury a much better fighter. How Peter Fury is one of the best coaches in boxing. Then you look at, I think, what's his best work has been with Savannah Marshall, right? Now, we know that the Savannah Marshall Claressa Shields fight got canceled, but, you got to understand, when Savannah Marshall was an amateur, she had all the talent in the world. She had won a lot of big-time amateur tournaments, but Savannah Marshall always lacked the confidence up here. She lacked the confidence to get over the hump in a lot of the amateur tournaments. So sometimes she would advance to a certain point. Many times she would advance to a certain point, and then she would lose. It even happened in the Olympics. She was the favorite in the match she lost, but she still came up short. So when she turned pro, a lot of people thought that Savannah Marshall had the ability, but did she have the mental makeup to really become all she could become in the pros, right? So when she got Peter Fury in her career, I think Peter Fury actually added a little bit of what he did with Fury. He got Savannah Marshall to tighten up on her basic, rudimentary, fundamental boxing skills. And not even just that, I think what happened with Savannah Marshall also is the fact that, he got her to believe in herself, and more so than that, she even became a more fluid fighter. I mean, if you look at the Savannah Marshall, the way she fights, her movements, the way she moves in the ring, there's a lot of like that Tyson Fury fluidity to her. And that comes from training, that comes from confidence, that comes from just preparation in the gym. And so like you see Savannah Marshall now, and she's been labeled the hardest punching woman today, and I really think she may just be the hardest punching woman pound for pound in boxing today. She really is a dangerous opponent for anybody, a tough out for anybody around her weight class. And Claressa Shields, when they do fight on October 15th, is going to have her hands full. Make no mistakes about it, because this is a different fighter so far as her skills. And more importantly, you can even see it in the way she talks, the way she conducts herself. She's a much, much more confident person from the from the shy girl, the shy, non-confident girl she was in the amateur. She really believes what she says now. You know what I'm saying? So I think a lot of that's down to Peter Fury. I think Peter Fury has mentally gotten Savannah Marshall to another level in boxing, and that's the hardest thing to do for a coach, for any fighter, because a fighter can have the ability, but being a great trainer just isn't about teaching, coming up with great game plans. It's not just about coming up with great skill, developing their skills. But a great trainer knows how to push the right buttons of a fighter, from, you know, the happy parts of them. He knows when to piss them off. He knows when to say things to boost their confidence. He knows how to use their ego in their, you know, to their benefit so that they can get the best out of their fighters. And I feel like in the case of Tyson Fury, who, by the way, I'm telling you guys, it sounds crazy to say now because he's the best heavyweight in the world right now, but Tyson Fury, like in those early days, like Martin Rogan, John McDermott, Nikolai Fertha, he was trash. I'm being Nevin Pajek, trash. Like an athletic guy who didn't know his way around the ring and really needed guidance. And Peter Fury came at the perfect time and gave him guidance. And he was that first building block that created the great fighter we see today. And now you're seeing it with Savannah Marshall. So yeah, I just wanted to say that about, you know, Peter Fury. I really don't think he gets the credit he deserves. Universally in boxing. I know he may get the credit like in the British boxing world, but here in the States, you know, I don't think people truthfully know how great of a trainer he is. So I kind of wanted to give my take on just his some parts of his career as a coach, and just really give the man his flowers, because I've been watching a lot of his interviews. I've been enjoying a lot of his insights over the years, and I realized, like, while I was watching his interviews, I'm like, man, I've never ever talked about Peter Fury. So that's my video on Peter Fury. He's actually one of the guys that I hope to meet in boxing one day, truthfully speaking. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that. Shout out to Peter Fury. Shout out to all the fighters that worked under him over the years, such as Tyson Fury, Savannah Marshall, and everybody else in between. Leave your comments down below. Make sure you guys take the time to subscribe. And like I say in every single one of these videos, you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just a kid from Dania. So until next time, take care, guys. Thank you for watching another video on True School Sports, the home of boxing. If you made it this far, do me a favor and do yourself a damn favor. Hit that subscribe button and surely you will not be disappointed. You know, True School Sports bringing you the latest and greatest, the untouchable, you know, boxing content, interviews, news videos, breakdowns, live fight reaction extravaganza. We've got a great community of people here, boxing fans all over the world, from America to the UK to Australia, and on and on and on. So join the empire today. Hit that subscribe button. Take care and God.